Hi, we're here at HR Tech 2021. We're at the Mandalay Bay. I'm here with Jake Sorofman of Visier. Jake, how you doing?
Good to see you, Al.
Yeah, you as well. Now, you just joined Visier recently. This is your first HR Tech. You had tons of options in terms of what to do at this stage of your career. What did you see in Visier that was special?
So when I look at a new opportunity, I'm really looking at three things in particular. The first is the product. You know, it needs to be a product that works, that does as it promises, and has a lot of customer proof in the market. And then market timing. So there's a meaningful, relevant problem worth solving today that the company is focused on. And then finally, team. And check. Visier really nailed each of those criteria for me. The product is one of the most impressive that I've had the experience of working with, just with respect to level of maturity, level of refinement, level of proof, and really doing everything that it advertises and more. In fact, that's been kind of an opportunity for us because the company's been remarkably restrained in the claims that it will make in the market. It actually does more than what we promise. The second, market timing. As you know, you're living this. We're all living this. It is a really good time to be in the HR tech space because there are considerable challenges around managing workforce. It's sort of the convergence of what I describe as the perfect storm of the resignation wave, the reckoning on race, diversity, inclusion, a shrinking labor market, and then this overarching fact that companies are now realizing that, not that they haven't before, but I think it's becoming very evident that the workforce and getting more productivity, performance, and value out of your workforce is really the most important strategic lever in an organization for driving change and growth. So all those things just line up in a way that kind of blew me away. Like this is the moment. And then of course you look at the team, incredibly smart people who are also good humans. So really passionate about the space, really want to win, but also very good human beings who really like working together.
Well, that team is diverse to your point, and it's also the case that, yes, the world needs this. And speak more about this notion that Visier has maybe been too modest in positioning itself because you see something bigger. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so I mean, this company was founded by product people and engineers who, first, and of course, I have my own biases and my own beliefs with respect to the team that I work with, and I really do think very highly of them. But they operate with an exceptionally high integrity level, and they believe passionately in the problem we're solving, and they believe that the product needs to back up the promise, which I think is, frankly, not to sound too cynical, but a bit rare in enterprise software. So that has meant that we have focused on building things that work and not necessarily getting ahead of our skis in terms of the stories that we tell to the market. And that's a good thing. Our customers will say that's a very good thing, and I think we believe it's a good thing. But ultimately, there's also a perception battle to fight, for lack of a better way of phrasing it, with respect to what it means to go to market. And that's the role that we're playing as we're trying to balance on the marketing side the product realities that we've created, which we're all very proud of, and then also the articulation of a big and bold vision that our customers and our prospects and our ecosystem really gravitate toward. And so far, so good.
I couldn't agree more. From my experience and my longevity in the space is that people analytics largely has been relegated to the director, manager level, and the perception has been those people are going to do something on an event-driven basis that's going to generate insight because I need it for a board meeting or something like that. Or I need a report, a dashboard built for a certain community. When in fact now, particularly with COVID, we've used this insight to inform our hybrid work strategy, our return to workplace strategy, our recruiting strategy, internal mobility, diversity, equity, inclusion. So it's really how we're consciously creating culture and customer connection. And what really took me back when in one of our early discussions, and you had become educated about the marketplace and Visier specifically, you called Visier the most important software company in in the world. And you said it with a great deal of passion and belief.
Yeah.
Because they're operating without this level of insight, there's a cost to it, right?
Yeah.
And not only a cost to organizations, but a cost to people. So, what are your thoughts there around the missed opportunity to really consciously create this culture and customer connection that we all long for?
Yeah, there's a new social contract forming between employers and employees that really requires companies to think differently about their relationship with their workforce, and that's not optional. People show up with different expectations around how they work, why they work, where they work. All of their values with respect to employment and relationship with an employer have been fundamentally shifted, and companies need to look at their workforce not just from the perspective of how do we squeeze another drop of juice out of the lemon, but how do we think about managing our workforce more holistically from the perspective of what's the outcomes we need for the business, yes, but also what are the outcomes that we're looking to enable for our employees as they navigate their own journeys professionally and personally. And those two things can't be divorced.
Sure.
And that is the role of HR, but it's also the role of people managers and how we think about managing people. So that was probably bold of me to say that Visier is the most important enterprise software company on the planet. Of course it isn't. That's an aspiration. But I think what we do is among one of the most important problems to solve, and one of the areas that has been largely unsolved.
Yeah.
So to me, that's incredibly exciting, and we're very passionate about being part of that.
Well, just so you know, when I heard it, I was like, well, if anyone's going to believe it, it has to be those who are actually creating it. And 100%. I reflected on it, and I was like, because you said it with humility, and you said it both as a challenge to go and step into that responsibility. It was also, the case where it was a elevation to, for lack of a better way to frame it, an appropriate level.
Yep.
Because this is a discussion around how we're going to move forward as an organization.
100%.
And that's where you, as a marketing professional, it's like, who's your buyer now? And who, in the ideal future state, should be consuming the insight that Visier is generating?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. I mean, we need to elevate the conversation from one that is more tactical to one that is as strategic as any conversation that has to happen in business today. And our buyer is, the HR department, the CHRO for sure. But more importantly, the intersection of the HR department or the HR organization and the line of business. Because ultimately HR exists in the service of the line of business and ensuring that the company is able to derive certain desired outcomes. Mm-hmm. So what really excites me and excites us as a company is not just people data for the purpose of better HR planning and preparedness and better decision making. While that's very important, what's even more important is that data is joined up with operational data that helps people managers make better decisions, again, on behalf of the company to drive the best business outcomes, but also on behalf of the employee, because those things are so intermingled at this point.
Absolutely. Yeah. As we start to wrap up, because I'm thinking about 18 ways we can take this conversation, but we don't have that much time today. My question is this: is that as you fast forward over the next 6 to 12 months, and there's return to workplace strategies happening, there's hybrid workforce, all this stuff, and as you mentioned earlier, the great resignation and vaccine mandates, which are shrinking already tight labor markets. What do you see as the ideal decisions that CHROs are making around their technology priorities? Because Josh Person said this morning that organizations of a certain size, and forgive me for not recalling the study, had 70 or more HR systems within their organization. And it's like, well, what are you going to get 71, and that's going to fill a certain process, and it's not going to provide a more holistic view of how to proceed. So the more pointed question I'll reframe is that, how does Visier specifically fit in that prioritization? When would you say, this is a now priority?
Yeah, it's a great question. When you think about the transformations that have happened in HR to date, they've been largely focused on efficiency. And there's only so far you can go with that. I think the next wave of transformation is around effectiveness, and the way at that is by deriving insight from the people and operational data that exists within the systems that you described, those 70 or 71 systems that reside within the enterprise, and then turning that into insights that can inform better decision making by both HR and people managers. One of the things that makes Visier special is that we are effectively a data hub, so we can aggregate data from all of those systems, both inside and outside of your organization. And the reality is that for many companies, 15, maybe 20% of your workforce data resides within an HRIS. It's often in other systems of record that you need to pull in to make these better decisions. Because the reality is when you're looking at incomplete data, you're making, in many cases, the wrong decisions. The second thing that makes it, I think, special and quite differentiated today is we've looked at this problem from the perspective of not just how do we make that data available, but how do we answer the right questions? Because that's often the long pole in the tent, is knowing which questions to ask in the first place, and then building the analytic models around them. And that can take literally years. So Visier has 11 or 12 years of experience building out all of these questions, 2,000 plus, that are available out of the box. So that means dramatically faster time to value and the ability for companies to start leaning into that insight today.
Jake, number one, I think you made a great decision. I know Visier is happy to have you, and I've
Thank
already
you.
seen positive changes. So
Thank you.
Celebrate what you're doing personally and what you all are doing as an organization. So onward and upward, yeah?
Thank you, Al. Appreciate it.
Absolutely my pleasure.
Yeah, great to see you.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah.